What is going on, Fantasy Bird Nation? Welcome back to another episode of your favorite podcast, The Fantasy Birds. Back with guest co-host, Mr. Tom Hickson. How are we doing today?
Doing good. I'm excited that the playoffs are finally here. We got some of the scrubs out of the way, so we can get down right down to business.
Exactly. You alluded to it. We're going to do some 2020, 2021 playoff predictions, take you through our playoff bracket, who's going to the Super Bowl, and who's going to host the Lombardi Trophy in Tampa Bay at the end of this year. So let's get right into it. We'll start off by we got to address our new playoff format, as there's 7 teams on each side now, and only the one seed getting a bye this year is the Kansas City Chiefs, Green Bay Packers for AFC and NFC respectively. And we're going to go AFC first, NFC, and we're going to take you through our predictions. Let's see where you want to be putting your money down coming this January and through February. So let's start off in the top left. We got the Cleveland Browns traveling to Pittsburgh, AFC North matchup. Who you like in this matchup? Pittsburgh, little minus 6.5 point favorite. What's your thoughts on this one?
So I'm just going to go ahead and say, just because of the circumstances, I'm going to roll with the Pittsburgh Steelers, but it's not because I have a lot of confidence in this Pittsburgh team. Look, we've known that, throughout basically the first 2/3 of the season, the Steelers had an undefeated record, but they hadn't really beaten anyone significant. And we were wondering whether this Pittsburgh team was fake or not. And I think Big Ben's struggles, his age, his injuries have kind of finally started to catch up to him. And he was really he was really not running the offense you would expect, especially since they have a lot of weapons on that offense. Yeah, I have a stable of running backs: Deontay Johnson, James Washington, Claypool, Juju Smith-Schuster. They got some dogs on that offense, a solid offensive line. I don't think Big Ben is the guy anymore, and I don't think he's the guy long term. And this is a different discussion, but to be honest, I would try and sever emotional ties per se, and maybe try and move on after this year if I'm the Steelers. But that's a different conversation. The reason why I want to stress this, look, I don't think the Steelers are necessarily for real, and I also don't necessarily think that they're on the right foot. However, man, look, the Cleveland Browns, they're getting done dirty, man. I don't know how else to say it. They're losing their head coach. They're losing multiple players. You're going to have one of the most, how should I say it, the most unfortunate franchises over the last 20 years in all of professional sports, having to play a game against the Pittsburgh Steelers with one hand tied behind their back. They're losing so many guys because of COVID. I just don't see the Cleveland Browns being able to pull it out this weekend with all of it. I was listening to Part of My Take the other day, and they were legitimately joking about, hey, maybe the NFL should give them a waiver so that Bill Belichick should coach this team for the week. But as much as I would love to see that happen, I'm really rooting for the Browns this week. But if I'm thinking with my head and not my heart, I can't do it. I can't do it. So yeah, give me Pittsburgh. Give me Pittsburgh for the game, not only to win but also to cover. I think the Browns playing with one hand tied behind their back might possibly make it interesting. They still have a lot of talent, but I'm gonna go with the Steelers in this one.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. 6-point favorites for the Pittsburgh Steelers. They actually went 1-1 in their matchups this season. Cleveland winning the one last week, but that was when, Pittsburgh's resting everybody, and now Cleveland's losing everybody coming into this week. I think that Cleveland built on their run game, and Pittsburgh's built to stop it. So I do like Pittsburgh to win and cover, just like you said. Let's go back to our next matchup, and we got the Indianapolis Colts traveling to Buffalo. Buffalo, 6.5 point favorite. Give me your thoughts on this game.
So I think Indianapolis is the type of team. They have a really good defense. They really like to pound the ball. They're not gonna try and put the ball in Phillip Rivers' hands too much, because I don't really think they can. I don't think that'd be very smart. But they have a stable of backs: Jordan Wilkins, not to mention Jonathan Taylor, who kind of exploded at the end of the season after some midseason struggles. Nyheim Hines is that change of pace back. They've got a lot of variety that they can use in that backfield, which, the running back position has been devalued, but this is obviously a team that is gonna ride their running back production a lot. Buffalo is a solid defense. They do have a couple of weaknesses. They need another edge rusher. They need kind of like a nickel linebacker type guy that can that can cover and also blitz, and also their cornerback too, opposite Tre'Davious White, can be a bit of an issue, but not enough of an issue for me in this game, because I don't really see the Colts receivers as too much of a threat, especially when they're going to be relying so much on the run game in the first place. Listen, man, I think it comes down to that Buffalo offense. Josh Allen has been playing incredible. Stephon Diggs has been one of the best receivers in the NFL this season. It's really made that trade with Minnesota worth it for both sides, actually, with Minnesota getting Justin Jefferson and in Buffalo getting Stephon Diggs out of it. I think that was a win-win. And basically, I think Buffalo is one of the hottest teams in the NFL right now. There's a lot of interesting teams in the AFC that are peaking at the right time. I think the Bills are one of them, and I don't know whether the Bills are going to cover, because I think by their nature, Indianapolis is the type of team that's going to try and muck it up. They're going to try and make it ugly, and you're going to have to try and win ugly. That's just kind of how they play. And so Buffalo might not be able to cover this game. I think it'll be a one-score game. It'll be kind of tough, but I ultimately think that Buffalo, this team is a really talented team. They've got an emerging quarterback. Yeah, I'm gonna go with Buffalo. Maybe not to cover a 6.5-point spread, but I'm gonna give them the win and have them moving on to the second round.
Look, pretty good take right there. But for me, what it comes down to is this Indianapolis defense, top 10 defense in the league. They try to get after you. Darius Leonard leading the way, stopping the run, blitzing. He does it all. And then this Buffalo Bills defense, not as good as we expected coming into the year. Very solid last year, but this year they kind of tailored off to middle of the pack, led by Tre'Davious White and Ed Oliver. We know that. But are those linebackers going to be able to get it done to stop Jonathan Taylor? He's been on one lately. Phillip Rivers, he's got the playoff experience. He's been here before. Taking it to a cold weather environment in Buffalo, 33 degrees for a game time, it's going to be close. I think this game comes down to the wire. Definitely the closest game of the week and hardest one to predict for me. But I'm taking the horseshoes and the upset. Phillip Rivers, too much playoff experience for me. And I think Josh Allen gets bounced in the first round yet again.
Yeah, I think, and I'll say this: I think you make a good point about the linebackers. Listen, Tremaine Edmonds is a stud at that Mike linebacker position. He has really developed quite nicely coming out of Virginia Tech when they drafted him a couple of years ago. Obviously, they still got some studs: Ed Oliver, Tre'Davious White, Jordan Poyer in the back end. But yeah, I'm AJ Klein at linebacker next to AJ Klein at linebacker next to Tremaine Edmonds. We're Saints fans. We understand the limitations per se that one AJ Klein might have. It's definitely a concern, and I think it's going to show up in coverage more than stopping the run. So that's why I think if anyone could potentially have a big game, it could be Nyheim Hines. If Indianapolis and Frank Wright is smart enough to attack that matchup. So it'll be interesting, and that's why and they're going to make it ugly with that defense. So it's interesting. We'll see.
Yeah. Just last note before we move on. Reports are saying that Cole Beasley out for this game. Steph Diggs questionable. You expect Steph Diggs to play, but that's just making it more on an even playing field for me in that matchup. But let's move on to our last wildcard game on the AFC side. It's Baltimore Ravens, heavy favorites coming into the season to make the playoffs. Snuck in as a wildcard team going against the Tennessee Titans. Ravens actually 3.5-point favorites on the road in Tennessee, even though Tennessee's beaten them twice in the past 365 days. Once this season, once in the playoffs last year. What's your thoughts on a 3.5-point spread favored the Ravens?
Well, I think a 3.5-point spread is too low, to be honest. Like I said, there's a lot of really hot teams in the AFC right now. To me, those three really hot teams are the Chiefs. The Chiefs maybe not hot. We'll get to the Chiefs later, but the Chiefs obviously I think are one of the favorites. However, you have the Chiefs, you have the Ravens, and you have the Buffalo Bills, in my opinion, who are all playing really good football. So if any one of those teams faces up against a team like the Tennessee Titans, who are we going to use the F word? Are we going to use the F word, the fraud word for them? I don't know. I don't know what to say. I mean, look, shout out to Tractor Cito. Tractor Cito has been has been carrying his weight in more, 2,000 yards. He's only the 9th player in the history of the NFL to do that. You know, they have some explosive pieces on offense. They run their entire passing offense through Corey Davis and AJ Brown. So I mean, that can be predictable, but it has been effective for them. But look, man, you know, you saw you saw what happens when they played teams, when they played any basically, you know, good teams, I guess. They got absolutely destroyed by Green Bay, and Green Bay's been, you know, one of the best teams in the NFL this year. So I don't want to put that against them too much. But yeah, man, I think there's some issues in the secondary with Tennessee, which, you know, as much as I feel like if you're going to be a team that tries to play, you know, clock control, run the football as much as you do, you need a defense that can also not give up big plays. And you've seen Tennessee struggle with that. Green Bay just gashed them at will. Even Indianapolis gashed them at will back when they played early in the regular season for the second time. It was really bad, man. Christian Fulton, who they drafted to be their slot cornerback, he's been on IR, so he hasn't been playing. Adoree Jackson, Malcolm Butler, you know, and you know, there are a couple other guys. I can't remember. There's another guy that's playing for them that I can't remember his name. So, you know, all the Tennessee Titans fans out there, you can roast me for that, probably screaming to yourselves. But yeah, I think their secondary has really struggled, and I think they're gonna have to. I think they're gonna have to play really, really well in order to stop the big plays from Baltimore in this game. They're obviously going to take deep shots down the field to Hollywood Brown. I expect at least one of those big, deep connections to happen. Baltimore's just playing too well, man. They're peaking at the right time. They really struggled in the middle of the season, but I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt in this game, and I'm going to say the Baltimore Ravens are going to win and they're going to cover.
Yeah, no surprise that the Baltimore Ravens are favorites in this game, given the way they've played. Even though Tennessee has, like I said, beaten them the two previous times they've played. Interesting to note, you talked about Tennessee defense, the 24th ranked defense, total team defense from the regular season. That's by far
the lowest. Get it done. Not good enough.
By far the lowest out of any playoff team still alive, and I think it's going to show. Derrick Henry he's going to do his thing, but Baltimore's built to handle the run, stop it a little bit, and I think Lamar Jackson's hitting his stride. He got it going against a couple of weak opponents later on in the season. Look for him to continue, and I think there's no way Baltimore won't be getting a dub here against a very weak Tennessee Titans defense that struggles to get after the quarterback. But let's go into we're going to go back to the top of the AFC. I have the Steelers and Colts. You had the Steelers and Bills. Take me through your thoughts on your Buffalo-Pittsburgh matchup.
Yeah, I'm gonna assume that Buffalo can make it through this game and get all their guys healthy up for the divisional round here against the Steelers. I think Buffalo is for real. I think this is a team that can make it to the AFC Championship. Listen, Buffalo's offense has played really well, and the Steelers have a lot of guys on that defense, and their defense has been one of the better defensive units in the NFL the past 2 years. So I want to give them credit. But ultimately, I haven't seen enough from this Steelers team, especially in the second half of the year, to really have that much confidence as them. I'm gonna go with Buffalo here to advance to the AFC Championship game. Again, I think Josh Allen has improved a lot, and granted, he can prove me wrong and still do that thing that he did in the last playoffs where he tried like throwing it like backwards with like 3 dudes on him to try and make something happen. Look, nothing's ever out of the question with Josh Allen. So I'll, as much as I'll say that, I just think that this is the year that Buffalo can make it to the AFC Championship game. So I'm gonna have Buffalo winning against Pittsburgh, and I'm gonna say they win by about 7 to 10 points.
All right, so pretty handedly W there for the Bills, but Bills Mafia, gonna love hearing that from you. But my matchup, I got the Colts advancing, so it's good. I'm looking at Colts and Steelers, and they actually just recently played Week 16. Steelers got a victory, 28-24, if my memory serves me right. And I think it's going to be another close game. Philip Rivers coming off a W, wild card weekend against the Bills. But I think the Pittsburgh Steelers get back to the run game. They kind of avoided it throughout the regular season. I see that offensive line, James Conner, getting back to the ground and pound, even against a stout front, the Indianapolis Colts. I think they get back to it. That's going to open up Big Ben to do his thing. Maybe Deontay Johnson stops dropping balls. Juju Smith-Schuster stops dancing and starts scoring touchdowns. But I think this Pittsburgh defense, too stout, even for an Indianapolis team that, they play defense themselves. But I like that Big Ben offense with James Conner more than I like Jonathan Taylor and Philip Rivers going down the line. So I got Big Ben going to the AFC Championship game where he will face the winner of the Baltimore Ravens and Kansas City Chiefs. Previously, we saw this on Monday Night Football earlier in the season. Kansas City pretty handily took down the Ravens. It was a blowout. It was ugly early. Do you think this changes, or are we going to see a repeat of what we saw earlier?
So, and just make so we're talking about Baltimore, Kansas City here, right?
Right.
Okay. So, I have some gripes about the Ravens. They are playing really well, but I have some questions about whether or not the Ravens can really go on that run and go on that run to win it all. I'm not really. Their wide receivers are very feast or famine. I'm not really in love with the weapons that they have on the outside. Obviously, they'll be very tight end oriented with Mark Andrews. Kind of struggled this year, but I think. Look, the Ravens will be able to run the football. We do know this. Lamar Jackson, the only quarterback in the history of the NFL that's been able to rush for 1,000 yards in back-to-back seasons. We know what type of a threat he is on the ground. They like to rotate their backs between Gus Edwards. Haven't really seen much Mark Ingram, but J.K. Dobbins has gotten some work too. Their offense is weird to me because their passing game is so feast or famine, and I think there's a real opportunity with the Chiefs defense being as good as it is for the Ravens to really struggle in the passing game. Ultimately, the Chiefs are the best team in the NFL, in my opinion. I know they kind of laid a little bit of an egg against the Falcons, but I mean, it's the Chiefs, man. They're the best team in the NFL. Patrick Mahomes has been on just an absolute murderer's row of a season. They have so many weapons that fit that offense perfectly. I think the Chiefs offense, even against this Ravens defense, I still think the Chiefs offense is going to be really explosive. And I don't know if the Ravens are going to be able to keep up, especially if their passing game is inconsistent. So I think it could be interesting. I think this could be interesting. This game could go any way. If you told me that the Chiefs won by at least 2 touchdowns, I wouldn't be surprised. But if you told me that the Ravens were able to control the clock and find a way to win, teams have beaten the Chiefs like that before. I wouldn't put it out of the realm of possibility, but I'm gonna have the Chiefs winning this. I just think the Chiefs are the best team in the NFL right
now. No doubt about it. On paper, Chiefs are by far the best team in the league. Top 11 defense, even with a Patrick Mahomes team that's absolutely nightmarish for any team suiting up against you. But blowout city, the first game, we mentioned it. Time of possession, it will be key in this game. If the Baltimore Ravens are able to bleed the clock, run the ball with Lamar Jackson, get Mark Ingram, J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards involved, moving those chains, third down conversions for the Ravens are going to be extremely key. Those short to go situations that maybe Lamar Jackson scoots over for a first down. I'm going to quote my friend Lee Corso and say, not so fast, Kansas City. Baltimore moving on. I like Lamar Jackson. He's getting it going late in the season. He needs to run the ball in this matchup to be effective. He did it in the first game, got away from him. Kansas City started bombing him. To beat Kansas City, you have to have a pass rush and you have to defend deep. Baltimore has it. They have the rushers to get it done. They have the cover corners to slow down Tyreek Hill, maybe a Travis Kelce in the meantime. Patrick Queen's been huge for them this week. I like their linebackers. I think this game's going to be very close. I'm going to take Baltimore to beat the spread, no doubt about it, and I even like them to get a victory if Lamar Jackson's able to control that clock and get the ball to his tight end, Mark Andrews and Marquise Brown on third down. So we're going to have AFC North in the AFC Championship, but we'll save that for later. Let's get over to our NFC side. And up top, we got the Los Angeles Rams versus the Seattle Seahawks. Met twice this season, split the season series 1-1 right down the middle. Seahawks minus 3.5-point favorites, but we don't know what's going on with the Rams quarterback, Jared Goff. Probably not going to play, what have it. How does this matchup stack up for you?
So I actually went, just because of how much respect I have for the Rams defense and how good they've been, I really wanted to entertain this. And if theoretically in a world where Jared Goff does play, this is easily the hardest game for me to predict. And I think the 3.5-point spread would kind of bear that out, having it being as, a one-score game. But listen, Seattle's weird because they don't have a pass rush whatsoever. They have a fifth-round rookie named Alton Robinson from Syracuse who had a lot of physical tools, but I mean, he wasn't ready to even sniff the field in his rookie year, but he's been getting a lot of playing time. It's gotten so bad that they drafted former LSU tight end Stephon Sullivan. Shout out Donaldsonville, Louisiana for that one. But they drafted Stephon Sullivan as a tight end and converted him to a defensive end midway through the season because they didn't have enough capable bodies to rush the passer. Seattle's defense is still one that's very flawed. They need pass rushers. They have a solid secondary kind of. Jamal Adams can play. Shaquille Griffin's a solid outside corner, but they still have some holes in that defense. I'm not in love with a lot of what Seattle's doing defensively, even though they still have Bobby Wagner. They still have some guys. The Jordan Brooks pick was much criticized per se, but he's been okay for them as a sub-package player. Again, I don't think Seattle's going to get very much pass rush, but again, if you don't have Jared Goff, I don't see them keeping up with an offense that's been as good as Seattle has been. Look, Seattle's been able to win offensively in different ways. What was the narrative the first half of the season, right? It was let Russ cook. Get his top three receivers, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, and David Moore down the field, and let them make plays. Let Russ throw those absolute moon bombs where they go 500 feet in the air, and trust Russell Wilson, one of the best quarterbacks in football, to make plays. And they aired it out a lot. And then midway through the season, they proved that on offense, you can also win a different way, a more frustrating way per se. But you still hand the ball off to Carlos Hyde, who's a capable running back whenever Chris Carson has been hurt. And Chris Carson has been hurt a decent amount this year. But I think Seattle has proven that offensively they can be effective in different ways. I do think they have some diversity there, and I think the Rams defense is going to make it really tough for Seattle. But ultimately, I think Seattle is going to make some plays, and I don't have enough trust in the Rams backup quarterback to be able to do that. What was his name? Wolford, the guy that was in the AAF. Yeah, played a solid game against Arizona, but also Arizona was playing with some dude named Streveler. So, we'll take that. I'll take that with a little bit of grain of salt, especially since Arizona has their own issues of late. Yeah, look, I just, again, with Jared Goff out right now, I don't have the faith in the Rams. If Jared Goff was playing, I actually would take the Rams, but I think that's enough for me to go off of the Rams pick, and I'm going to go Seattle to cover a 3.5-point spread and get the W to move on to the divisional round.
Yeah, Los Angeles Rams, number one team defense in the regular season. That's their only chance, in my opinion. I'm going to smash the under in this matchup. Backup quarterback for the Rams. Seattle, questionable to play Jamal Adams, questionable to play Chris Carson. Seattle's look pretty bad going down the stretch. So you don't love the Seattle Seahawks in the playoffs, but against a Rams team with a backup quarterback, even with that stout defense, I'm gonna go with Seattle to get this victory and cover it, like you said. But Seattle's got to get it going if they're going to make any moves in this playoffs, because right now it doesn't look like their run game is struggling. Russell Wilson, he lost his MVP candidacy down the stretch. DK Metcalf struggling as of late, but let's see if they can get it going down the stretch. But I'm going to take I'm right there with you. I'm going to take Seattle to get a victory. Let's go down to the Bayou. We've got the Chicago Bears traveling to the New Orleans Saints. 10-point favorites, the New Orleans Saints are in this matchup. By far the biggest spread in Wild Card Weekend. Who you got here?
So I want to keep my integrity. I don't want to sound like too much of a homer, even though obviously here I am wearing a Saints jersey with an LSU flag behind me. But Hunter, I'm going to ask you a question, Hunter. Or maybe it's basically please name one thing that the Chicago Bears do better than the Saints. I'm not saying it. Think about it. Okay. Even with Drew Brees not being at his peak self of old, him potentially trying to protect himself still with the rib injuries. You saw it against Minnesota. He threw a couple of ducks up there just trying to avoid getting hit. But Drew Brees against Mitchell Trubisky, again, they're not going to be on the field at the same time. So I do get kind of wary of the quarterback battles per se, because they're never directly battling each other. But when you look at the advantages, Drew Brees, Mitchell Trubisky, come on now. If you're doing a comparison, the Saints obviously have the better end of that comparison. Chicago is much maligned on the offensive line. The Saints have one of the best offensive lines in the league, especially the best tackle duo in the league of Armstead and Ramczyk. Bears have a guy in Charles Leno that should not be he's a free agent this season, and he shouldn't be brought back to start on any price tag, even at the vet minimum. They've really struggled. The Bears have some decent receivers. I'll give them that, but they don't have a quarterback. They don't have a quarterback that can get them the ball. Mitchell Trubisky cannot pass. Mitchell Trubisky is pretty solid as a passer between 0 and 10 yards down the field. Once you get between 10 and 20 yards down the field and beyond, the numbers plummet like the stock market in 2008. It's really bad. And even and they're much maligned. The Saints, what are they going to do? They're going to try and run the football, put it in David Montgomery's hands. Except that the Saints have been the best run defensive team in the NFL the past 3 seasons. There's a large sample size of this. I know they struggled against Philadelphia, but I think that was probably a wake-up call, a wake-up call that they needed. So I'm going to call that more of an outlier. I don't think the Bears will be able to run the ball very effectively, especially with a maligned offensive line. And then defensively, look, we know they have talent. We know they have Eddie Jackson. They have Khalil Mack. They have Akeem Hicks. But whenever Akeem Hicks is not playing elite football, that also hurts Khalil Mack, because that allows them to double Khalil Mack. They're not getting a lot of pressure on the quarterback. Despite all of the talent that they have, they're really struggling to replace Leonard Floyd at the edge position opposite of Khalil Mack. They have, again, Chuck Pagano has been very underwhelming coaching that defense. They're not getting after the quarterback. They don't have as much ball production. They're not as scary of a defense as you once thought, even though they have some of the same talent. So I think that's a scheme thing. I don't think that's something that can change overnight. If the defense plays out of their mind, I'm sure they have a chance. And listen, I think they have enough talent on that defense to make it interesting at times. I don't want to make it seem like it's a blowout. I don't think the Bears are capable of allowing 45 points being dropped on their head. But look, it's a long-winded way of saying I don't think there's a single area where the Bears are better than the Saints. And not to mention, I haven't even mentioned Matt Nagy and the lack of faith that the Bears fans have in him calling the plays. They're just praying to God someone else does. You think that guy's going to outcoach Sean Payton? I don't think he will. I'm going to go with the Saints. I'm going to go with the Saints to cover the spread as well. I think the Saints are going to win solidly. However, before I'm done, I will say one thing, that the Saints, ever since the Drew Brees, Sean Payton era started in 2006, I have a list right here of all the quarterbacks that the Saints have lost to in those games, and it's not who you think they are. I'm gonna read off this list for you. The Saints the quarterbacks that have beaten the Saints 2006 through 2019 in the playoffs and eliminated them: Rex Grossman, Matt Hasselbeck, Alex Smith, Russell Wilson, okay, but then Case Keenum, Jared Goff, Kirk Cousins. So you never know. You never know. I'll just throw that out there.
That's true. The Saints are prone to losing to subpar quarterback in the playoffs in dramatic fashion, I will add. And I think it's interesting to know, like you said, what do the Bears do better than the Saints? I feel like the strength of this Bears team, obviously on defense, but it's more centered on that defensive line with Khalil Mack and Akeem Hicks. And I think the Saints defensive line is right there with them with Cam Jordan, Trey Hendrickson leading the league in sacks at one point this season, tailed off a little bit at the end, but
Absolutely.
Marcus Davenport, two defensive tackles getting after it, and then the secondary, as we all know. I do like the Saints in this game, even though I do like them to cover as well. I think this game might get a little bit ugly in the Dome. These two teams did meet earlier in the season in Chicago, went to overtime. Saints got a 3-point victory, a little closer than one might expect. But even with I think Quan Alexander injury out for the year with a torn Achilles, might show up later on in the playoffs. Not this game. Not enough firepower on Chicago's offensive side to even make this close, in my opinion. I'm going to take the Saints to cover 10 points easily and get ugly pretty early, if you're asking me. It's going to take us to our last wild card game. It's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers going against the Washington football team. Welcome to the playoffs, football team. Tampa Bay is 8.5-point favorites on the road in Washington, D.C. What's your thoughts on this one?
Look, this game could be in Tampa. This game could be at the Washington professional football team. This game could be in Alaska. I don't care where this game is. Look, Tom Brady getting lucky again because there are 14 playoff teams. Sorry. Let me. There are 13 playoff teams, and there's one team that's just happy to be there. And to me, that's the Washington football team. Listen, we could sit here and talk about how much maligned the Bears are. I have much more confidence. Like if the Bears played the football team tomorrow, I would be much more confident in the Bears. Listen, this, as far as I'm concerned, this is not a playoff team. They I'm not even gonna waste my breath, man. Just give the win to Tampa. Give the win to Tampa. Give them the cover and just move on. I have my own thoughts on Tampa, and I'm gonna share that. I'm gonna share that for when they move on and play the Packers in the next round. But like, come on, bro. Like, I'm not wasting my time with this.
Look, I'm actually going to take a different route on this one. I think Tampa Bay will win this game, but I look for Washington football team to cover an 8.5-point spread. Well, it's going to be close on that one, but especially earlier in the week when Tampa Bay was 11-point, 10-point favorites. Really love the Washington football spread on that one. What does Tom Brady struggle against in his career? And it's a pass rush, and that's the only thing Washington football team does well is they get after the quarterback with that defensive line. Chase Young, go along with Kerrigan and the guy from Alabama a couple years ago. I think this team, that's literally the only thing they do well, aside from throw the ball 2 yards down the field to J.D. McKissick. Look, if Chase Young can have a good day in the backfield, he asked for the GOAT after their victory over the Eagles on Sunday Night Football. Well, was it over the Eagles or was it over Doug Peterson handing them the W? That's for
they still could have lost that game. They still could have lost.
That's for the New York Giants football coach to think about for the next 7-8 months. But look, Chase Young, he asked for Tom Brady. He's going to get Tom Brady. I think it's going to be interesting to see how Tom Brady reacts to this. I think it'd be hilarious if Tom Brady absolutely stomps Chase Young and the football team into the dirt. But look, I'm going to give the edge to the young front on the football team, getting after the quarterback, making it close down the stretch. Tampa Bay gonna win this game. But I'll take the football team plus 8.5.
So the only thing that I'll say, I was very dismissive of the Washington Redacteds. Let me give them some credit. Their defensive line is incredible, and you obviously alluded to that. But that is absolutely an example that should be shined upon. Is that when you invest multiple first round picks into one unit and really try and build the identity of your football team around. And when you hit on all those first round picks, when you hit on Montez Sweat, Chase Young, Deron Payne, Jonathan Allen, and Ryan Kerrigan, and you have those 5 guys that, like, that can all be difference makers. I mean, you got some dogs that can get after the quarterback. However, I just see their secondary as being too weak. And Tom Brady, yes, his biggest nemesis is a good pass rush, but he also gets the ball out of his hand very quickly. And even though they won't have Mike Evans this week, he'll still be able to do that to some solid receivers and Antonio Brown and Chris Godwin, Scotty Miller. So I think their secondary is too maligned to make up for how good that pass rush is. Again, and I cannot stress this enough. They're really good against bad teams, and I don't think Washington is a very good team. So yeah, I'll give the edge to the Bucs on this one.
Let's go back up to the top of our NFC bracket. We got Russell Wilson, the Seattle Seahawks, coming down to the Bayou, take on the New Orleans Saints. And just from the first looks of this game, it's got New Orleans Saints misery written all over it. If you think of years past, teams coming into the Dome, heavy underdogs, getting miraculous victories, even on the road against the Vikings a couple years back. But just the looks of this game, Russell Wilson coming into the Superdome, you feel confident about this game, but also you're a bit wary given the recent history of these Saints. What's your thoughts?
I still think that this is a good Saints defense, and what's really gonna make me nervous are the shot plays to DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett down the field. They have really good receivers, and I think they're gonna make this interesting, and I think it's gonna be a pain in the ass for Saints fans having to watch Russell Wilson throw it down the field as much as I think he will this weekend. But again, the Saints have a really good pass rush. Seattle has struggled on the offensive line despite how much they like to run the football, which is really weird. Seattle's one of the weirdest teams in the NFL to me. Again, I think our pass rush is gonna get after them. But our pass rush is going to do their job. But one of the things that we've seen out of Dennis Allen is whenever the Saints are playing against a mobile quarterback, you see the Saints using more of something called a crush rush, where they don't try and beat their guys with speed rushes on the outside and try and get like around the offensive tackle necessarily, because all that does is create running lanes for Russell Wilson to get chunk 8-10 yard runs like that. I think what they're going to do is they're going to try and contain Wilson in the pocket and use bull rush moves to try and push their offensive linemen back into him and constrict them. So I think that's going to be very interesting to see how the Saints defense plays against that Seattle offense, because that's going to be the matchup to me. I think the Saints are going to be able to move the ball on the Seahawks. I think they have significant holes on that defense. They have all season long. They've played better as the season goes along, so I'll give them credit, but I still think this is a Seattle defense that has a lot of flaws. Like I said, they don't have any pass rush. Their secondary in certain spots can be attacked, especially with good scheme, and Sean Payton is one of the best offensive coaches in the NFL. So, yeah, I think the Saints are the more talented team. I think the Saints have, frankly, one of the most talented defenses in the NFL. And are they going to show up against the Seahawks? I think they will. I think this will be a close game. I'm going to go with the Seahawks to cover the spread in that game, assuming that the spread would be something around, maybe 5 or 6. I would think Seattle's going to cover it and keep the game really close because of how many weapons they have. I do have respect for Russell Wilson. He's, easily a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. That's not up for debate. Yeah, I still think the Saints are going to win. Dome field advantage isn't quite going to matter as much as it used to, with not many fans coming in. But yeah, I'm going to have the Saints winning this game.
I'm right there with you. I think the Saints will prevail in this game. I do think it's going to be close. I think the key thing in this game is going to be the defensive lines on each side. Saints defensive line, you expect to get after the quarterback, but like you said, can they contain Russell Wilson getting out of the pocket? That's going to be the key. If they can keep him in, not let him extend plays, that's where he really does his damage, and even running for first downs. We saw it against the Jalen Hurts team. Let's see if the Saints can get it right. I expect them to limit Russell Wilson a little bit in that category. Still got to do his damage. Still got to get it to DK to lock it down the field. But as long as they can limit him getting outside of the pocket, that's going to be the key for the Saints. And then what do the Saints struggle against? Kind of similar to Tom Brady. It's those pass rushes. It's the last 3 games we lost in the playoffs. The Vikings absolutely destroyed the offensive line. Everson Griffin, Danielle Hunter had a field day. Aaron Donald, the Rams before. So this defensive line, it's mediocre at best, other than a Carlos Dunlap, who's been a good player for them recently. But I don't think Seattle's defensive line is good enough to do anything against the Saints front, especially you mentioned the Twin Towers on the outside, Armstead, Ramczyk, and then you sprinkle in a little Pete magic here and there, Pro Bowler, three-time Pro Bowler. What's good, Big Meat Pete? But I think this Seattle defensive line is just so inept in this game, and it's going to show. Drew Brees is going to have all day to throw the ball, and I'll take the Saints to win this game, but probably close, since you got to imagine Russell Wilson's going to do some damage against that defense, even though how good it is. So we will take the New Orleans Saints to move on to the NFC Championship, and this is going to be the game of the bracket for me. Buccaneers, Green Bay Packers. We saw it once before in Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay absolutely obliterated this Green Bay Packers team, 38-10. Green Bay got up early. Tampa Bay rolled the rest of the way. Give me some insight on Tampa Bay traveling to Lambeau against Aaron Rodgers.
So the Bucs this year, they had to win against Green Bay, and I don't want to discount that, but I think that's more of an outlier, because when you look at when you look at the teams that they've played this year and their record against non-playoff teams versus their record against actual playoff teams is pretty astounding. The Bucs won that one game against playoff teams. They won that one game against Green Bay. They proceeded to lose every other game that they played against playoff teams, and frankly got destroyed in a lot of them. They even lost to Chicago. They struggle against good defenses. Green Bay's defense isn't perfect, but it's definitely good enough the way their offense is playing. Look, I think by the time the Bucs end up playing a real team, and the Green Bay Packers are, to me, the second best team in the NFL right now, that's the definition of a real team. I don't see the Bucs winning this game, and the reason why is I don't think this is a very well coached team. It hasn't come together for them. And coaching in the NFL, coaching really matters. And they have the offensive talent. Obviously, they have they have probably the best stable of receivers in the NFL. However, Mike Evans, we don't know how long he's going to be out, but the injury looked really bad. It could be just a hyperextension or a sprain, but even if it's a sprain, much less, God forbid, he actually blows out his knee on that play. Maybe there's been an update on his injury status. I'm not aware of it as of yet, so I'll throw that out there. Nonetheless, this is an offense that has struggled against good defenses, especially defenses that can get after the quarterback. Their pass protection has been subpar at times, not with Tristan Wirfs, the rookie on the right side, but Donovan Smith. Donovan Smith has struggled on the left side this year, and I don't think, if you're Tampa Bay, I don't think you can go into next season with Donovan Smith as your starting left tackle. So there's going to be room there for Green Bay to attack that if they overload that side. I think that Byron Leftwich is not good enough of a play caller to exploit this Green Bay defense, and I think Green Bay's offense is going to be rolling pretty well. I'm going to go with Green Bay in this game, and I'm actually going to go with them to cover the spread too. I think that Green Bay is absolutely rolling right now. They don't really have a go-to second receiver, but Devontae Adams has just absolutely smoked everyone that they've lined across him. And I think Carlton Davis, who's a really aggressive, really physical corner, I think Devontae Adams is going to cause him to overcommit a lot, and I think he's gonna get the best of Carlton Davis. So yeah, I see the Packers winning this game. I don't have any faith that the Buccaneers are a good enough coach team to be able to beat, to be able to beat anyone who's not just an absolute cellar dweller. And they played a decent amount of them this season. Lord knows they beat the Lions into the ground. But that doesn't really say much. Yeah, I don't know. Green Bay to win and cover. I don't have much faith in the Bucs.
We talked about the 38-10 victory for the Buccaneers in Tampa Bay earlier in the season, but I'm throwing that out the window. Too early for me to hold any weight coming down the stretch. I think these are two very hot football teams. Green Bay especially, just rolling on all cylinders really. Tampa Bay with a Mike Evans injury, you don't feel too worried about that because they brought in Antonio Brown. So Antonio Brown's got to step right in, do his thing. Huge game in week 16 and looking better and better in that offense. So even with a Mike Evans out, you got to like your chances with Antonio Brown and Chris Godwin duo and then a Gronkowski down the middle. But it's good. This is a close game, I think. I don't think there's any way this game gets out of hand. I think it's going to be a shootout, no doubt about it. I don't see Green Bay's defense doing much. I think Tampa Bay needs to stick to the run in this game. They need to exploit Green Bay's rush defense. It's been lackluster the entire season. They need to have Leonard Fournette, Ronald Jones get after it. For them to win this game, they need to get on the ground. I'm looking at the Tampa Bay linebackers, and I'm thinking Lavonte David, Devin White. Can these two guys make enough plays? Can they control the run game? Can they play pass defense? Can they get after the quarterback when needed to beat Aaron Rodgers? Devin White, former LSU Tiger, I might add. Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers. This game's going to be close in Lambeau. I think if anyone's going to go to Lambeau and do it, it's going to be Tom Brady. He's used to it. He's used to that cold weather, being from New England. And I'm going to take the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to get it done, even though I think Green Bay is by far the better team right now. Tom Brady, too much experience. Devontae Adams, I think only one real threat on the outside could play a factor in this game. The front seven for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I think, too big. Stopping the run, Aaron Jones, look for him, and I think not have a good day. But if Tampa Bay gets that run game going, I'm going to have Tampa Bay moving on to the NFC Championship.
Wow. I wasn't expecting that, but okay.
But look, let's get into our championship weekend matchups. I have Pittsburgh Steelers against the Baltimore Ravens and the Saints against the Buccaneers, two divisional matchups. You have the Buffalo Bills against the Kansas City Chiefs and the New Orleans Saints against the Green Bay Packers. So two cross-division matchups for you. Give me your thoughts on your matchup given the Kansas City Chiefs hosting the Buffalo Bills.
I think the Buffalo Bills have been an actual really good team, and I think they'll be a force to be reckoned with in the future. They're not as good as Kansas City. We've talked about how explosive Kansas City's offense is, and we've also talked about how improved Josh Allen has been, but I don't think there's necessarily too much that needs to be said here. I don't know if Buffalo has the defense to really contain Patrick Mahomes in high pressure situations enough. Their offense is much improved. Buffalo's is, but I just see Kansas City winning this game. I don't really have much concerns about them. I think Kansas City is such a well-rounded team. I'm gonna go with Kansas City. I'll go with Kansas City to win, at least in my bracket, and move on to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, before I get into Steelers Ravens, I want to point out if the Chiefs are able to beat the Ravens, I think there's no doubt about it. They go to the Super Bowl. I don't think there's any other team in the AFC built to beat Patrick Mahomes and those Chiefs with the defense, with the front four that you need, and then a run game to keep Patrick Mahomes off the field. So no doubt about it, if the Chiefs are able to, they're going to be favorites against the Ravens, and if they get it done, which, could very well happen if the Ravens aren't able to run the ball against the Chiefs. I think the Chiefs are no doubters going to the Super Bowl, but I'm giving that edge to the Ravens. I think they're going to get it done in that game. And then against the Steelers, actually, we saw this game twice as they are divisional foes, and we saw the Steelers beat the Ravens twice, one without Lamar Jackson, I will point out. Two very close games, but you know how the storyline goes in the NFL. It's hard to beat a team 3 times, right? Well, it's going to be hard for the Steelers to do that. I'm taking the Ravens. Lamar Jackson's back. I think this Pittsburgh Steelers team, we've seen the weaknesses starting, losing to the football team and losing to other teams down the stretch. I see Lamar Jackson being the more active and energetic quarterback in this matchup and making more plays than Big Ben Roethlisberger. I'm taking the Ravens to go back to the Super Bowl as a wild card team, kind of giving me New York Football Giants, reminiscent from those years with Eli Manning and a good pass rush with Michael Strahan. I'm going to take Calais Campbell, Lamar Jackson, Mark Ingram, and J.K. Dobbins head off to Tampa Bay to go to the Super Bowl. So that's going to take us to our NFC side, and we got the New Orleans Saints against you got the Green Bay Packers. I'll take the Buccaneers who in Lambeau Field for your matchup. Saints traveling up north. Who you got in this one?
So, first of all, I want to say that there is this myth, this misconception that the Saints are considerably worse on the road than they are at home, and that's just not true. The Saints quietly have been easily one of the best road teams in the NFL over the past few seasons. I'm not really worried about that at all. I also think the dome field advantage, while it is definitely nice, I also think it is a little bit overstated in terms of results on the field. So, the cold weather does scare me a little bit, but being away, going on the road, if there's one place that I would be a little bit nervous about going to because of the cold, it would be Lambeau. Other than that, being on the road itself isn't necessarily a deal breaker for me. I think the Saints have proven they're a much better road team than the common conception is. However, Aaron Rodgers scares the crap out of me against the Saints. I'm gonna pick the Packers just in this game just because I feel like Aaron Rodgers is going to be able to get outside of the pocket and make plays with his legs. He's going to do that thing where he can get 8 to 10 yards. He can get 8 to 10 yards scrambling without getting touched, run out of bounds, and slide. He's going to get outside of the pocket and make plays with his arm as well. Davante Adams, him and Davante Adams have a really interesting connection on the field because Davante Adams is also an elite receiver when it comes to the scramble drill. And Aaron Rodgers loves to get outside the pocket, and he always knows that Davante Adams knows where to go when he rolls outside of the pocket. It's going to come down to that matchup for me. I think Adams, the way that he's been playing, he's been the best receiver in the NFL this season. I think he's going to get the better of Marshawn Lattimore, who has had an up and down season, but a very up season of late in his own right. But I think it's going to be simple. I think our defense is going to be able to make some plays, but I think Green Bay's offense is going to be a lot more explosive against our defense than our offense will be against theirs. I think we're going to have to try and play more ball control and try and keep it out of Rodgers' hands. I think we're going to have to play that type of game with him and really center everything that we do around limiting Rodgers. I think Rodgers is the MVP this season, and he's thrown 48 touchdowns and I don't know, like five interceptions, something crazy like that. Don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but I believe it's like 48 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. So yeah, I think the Packers are just playing too well. Give me the Packers give me the Packers in a close game to advance against the Saints. And they're gonna play the Chiefs in the Super Bowl for me. I think these are the 2 clear best teams in the NFL, and I think when they get the opportunity in the playoffs, I think they're gonna show it.
Yeah. previously what I've said about the Chiefs, if they're able to beat the Ravens, I see them in the Super Bowl. If the Packers are able to get to this NFC Championship game, I do agree that it would be tough for a New Orleans Saints team to go to Lambeau and get a victory. So I also would take the Green Bay Packers in that game in a close one, even though I think Marshawn Lattimore plays a lot better against high-level competition on the outside.
Yes.
So I think against the Devontae Adams, he would bring his best game, and it would be a much tighter matchup than one might think. But I will go with the Packers in that situation. But as I have predicted, I'm taking the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to go into Lambeau, get it done for the Who-Dats. Appreciate it, buddy. And I'm going to go with Saints. Look, you can't beat a team 3 times. Saints did it a couple of years back against the Panthers pretty handily, I might add.
That was really fun.
I'll take the Saints to beat the Buccaneers yet again. Definitely the best defense Tampa Bay has seen in the playoffs, even with a football team front seven. You got to like that. But a complete defense in this New Orleans Saints team. I don't think Tom Brady is going to be able to pick it apart as well as Drew Brees will. We saw it on Sunday night, complete thrashing when everyone wanted to go the Buccaneers' way. I think it's definitely not going to be that egregious in this matchup. I'll take a much closer game, but I think the Saints got to get it done in the Dome. Yet again, rewrite history, get it going, send Drew Brees off to the Super Bowl, to Tom Brady's home in Tampa Bay for the Super Bowl matchup against the Baltimore Ravens. I got the Ravens and the Saints. You got the 1 seeds, Chiefs, Packers. This game taking place in Raymond James Stadium down there in Tampa Bay, Florida. What's the insight? Chiefs, Packers, Mahomes, Rodgers.
So I'm actually going to start with your matchup. I'll let you get into that, but I actually think if that is the matchup, I think the Saints would win, just because I think Baltimore likes to run the football. They're kind of predictable with their deep shots, and they don't really have a lot of directions that they can go. So I think the Saints could scheme that up defensively and put a safety over the top on Marquise Brown to try and cap that off. The Baltimore runs the football really well. The Saints stop the run really well. Going against a mobile quarterback like that is definitely, it can definitely strike fear. However, I think if that's the matchup, I think the Saints would come out on top. However, I think the AFC team would win against Kansas City and Green Bay. I think it would be really close. I think what it's also ultimately going to come down to Rodgers. Rodgers has been the MVP this season. He's been incredible. Mahomes has also been incredible this season, just making ungodly plays. However, when you look at the comparisons, a lot of it holds up. Both have really good offensive lines. Both have clear number 1 go-to receivers. However, the Chiefs also have Travis Kelce, who had the best tight end season ever this year, and he's been playing out of his mind. They're going to focus him. They're going to focus him a lot in that offense, and I think he gives them a dimension that the Packers have to account for, that the Packers don't have offensively, that the Chiefs have to account for. Robert Tonyan's been solid, but he's nowhere close to Travis Kelce in terms of being an offensive weapon. And then also, when you compare the defenses, I think there are more flaws on the Packers defense than there are on the Chiefs defense. The Chiefs defense is pretty well rounded, like you said. They're the number 11 ranked defense, which if you have a Patrick Mahomes led team, the number 11 defense is more than sufficient. You'll live just fine with that. The Packers are very strong rushing the passer between Rashawn Gary and the Smith brothers, Preston and Zadarius. Adrian Amos has been really good for them as well. Jair Alexander is a shutdown young stud number 1 corner. But at the cornerback spot opposite of Jair Alexander is where you're going to see some issues for them. Kevin King has been very vulnerable for them, and not only has he struggled at various points, but he's also had plenty of opportunities. There were 2 opportunities that Kevin King had to have easy interceptions in the last game against Chicago. He dropped them, and you need to take advantage of those opportunities when you're the Packers, because you need to keep the ball out of Mahomes' hands and create opportunities for yourself. I also think the interior defensive line of the Packers, they need some more juice there. I think that's something I expect them to, first or second round in the draft. I expect them to do that, to go that direction with interior defensive line. But yeah, I think the Packers defense just slightly has a couple more holes that the Kansas City defense doesn't have. Not to mention Kansas City also having a quarterback that's just as good as Aaron Rodgers and having more offensive weapons. I'm going to give the edge to the Chiefs here. I think the Chiefs have been the best team in the NFL all year, and they're beatable. They're not invincible, but I still think the Chiefs. If I had to pick, I would pick the Chiefs to I would pick the Chiefs to win, not necessarily cover, and I still think this is going to be a really small spread, but yeah, I'm going to pick the Chiefs to win.
Let me get into the matchup first. Kansas City against Green Bay down in Tampa, Florida. I think it's a must thing to point out. Green Bay losing an all-pro left tackle for the season. So not that Kansas City's pass rushers scare you outside of a Chris Jones, but losing a tackle is definitely going to hurt you, no doubt about it, especially one of his magnitude. So I will go with Kansas City to win this game. I think that defense, the offensive stack up very nicely. Patrick Mahomes, top level. Aaron Rodgers, MVP. We've also seen MVPs lose Super Bowls recently with Matt Ryan and others down the stretch losing in the Super Bowl. Tom Brady losing one of those years, and Cam Newton. But I'll take the MVP to lose in this Super Bowl if it is to be against a Patrick Mahomes team, just because the offense is, like I said, very even. But I do like that KC defense, top 11, and to be a little bit better than the Packers. It's going to be key if the Chiefs are going to rely on that run game, because Green Bay can be exploited with the run. And I think Patrick Mahomes is going to make too much magic for the Green Bay Packers to keep up with him. I'll take the Chiefs in that matchup. But my matchup, Ravens-Saints. The Saints have, if they are to get to this point, they have seen some mobile quarterbacks in a Trubisky and a Russell Wilson. I think it prepares them. Look, those guys are not Lamborghini Lamar by any means, but it prepares them in this sense. I think Quan Alexander would be huge in this matchup, his speed.
Right.
But I think Demario Davis is going to be able to get it done. Keeping Lamar Jackson at bay, he's going to get his no matter what. But if we can keep Lamar as a runner and then make him pass, I think the Saints will have ample opportunities to get this game done, especially the Saints run defense that, I'll take them over anybody in the league, especially past 3 years, like you said, top defense. I'll take them to shut down the Ravens. Mark Ingram, sorry, buddy, no Super Bowl for you. Call me a homer, whatever you want to say, but I'll take the Saints to get it done. It's going to happen one of these years, right? Maybe. This might be the last chance. Drew Brees, go get yourself some money.
Chance.
Go retire. Go live out your life as a Super Bowl champion for the New Orleans Saints. So I'm going to take the Saints. You're going to take the Chiefs. Pretty different predictions from both sides. You got to love to see that. But we appreciate you guys for coming out, see the Fantasy Birds, and we'll see you guys next time.
All right.